If you're a busy student and you think you're way too busy to get a good workout in and make significant gains, you need to stop lying to yourself. I've gone through every stage of education, taking all of my exams, even up to university level, and still kept a consistent training program and reached my goals. So before you even think about clicking off this video, think to yourself, if you really want it that badly whilst you're a busy student, keep watching, because this is how you're going to do it. What's up? I'm Lockie, a final year sport and exercise science student at Oxford Brookes University. With over 3 years of science-backed resistance training, and I'm now a published sport and exercise science researcher, I've had plenty of experience in trying to build a decent physique whilst being in full-time education. So last Saturday, we covered the most important principles for busy students when trying to reach their goals, whether that's muscle size or strength. But today I'm going to show you exactly how you can actually apply those principles to actually see some gains. So if you watched last week's video and you weren't too sure about how to use them properly, watch this one. So here's what we're going to cover today. A full, complete workout that applies hypertrophy principles, how to use the stretch emphasis, tempo, and progressive overload for faster gains, and some practical tips to integrate science-backed strategies into your weekly training routine. Let's jump into it. So as you should know by now, a proper warm-up is what primes your muscles to be ready for the load you're about to exert on them. So not doing a warm-up is not only dampening your gains, but also increasing your risk of injuring yourself, which means you're not going to stick to the gym because you're going to take more time off to recover, and then you just won't enjoy it because you keep getting injured. So this is how you should do a proper warm-up for hypertrophy. So just keep it nice and quick and effective. A lot of people tend to think that doing a warm-up should involve your whole body. Sometimes, yes, that's probably a good thing. If you're doing super heavy compounds like you're a power lifter or an Olympic weightlifter, fine, do that. But if you're training for hypertrophy, you really want everything to be as isolated as possible. So doing your warm-up, you only really need to warm up the muscles you're going to train in that session. So this is going to be a arms and shoulders session, or an arms and shoulder session. And that means we're going to be warming up our arms and our shoulders and any other joints that are involved in the movement. So one of my most important ones at the minute is external rotations for my rotator cuffs, because they're absolutely fucked. So now that we've warmed up my rotator cuffs, we're going to warm up the first muscle we're wanting to train. So for me, that is going to be the biceps, because that's my most lacking muscle group within the muscles I'm training today. So it doesn't really matter how you do this. You can just do the first exercise of your workout for that muscle with just a lighter weight. So I'm just going to stick the bar on. I usually do 26.1 kilos, but because it's a warm up, I'm going to do about half of that. So I'm going to do 14.7, not quite half, but it's close. And you just want to take nice and slow, controlled reps, allowing the muscle to stretch at the bottom. Nice and explosive upwards and a controlled descent, like I said, with a stretch at the bottom as well. Cool, done the warm-up. Let's move on to the next part. So now we're going to get into the meat and potatoes of the workout. So this is going to be doing high intensity, 2 sets per exercise, focusing on a full range of motion with an emphasis on the stretch and implementing progressive overload. So sticking with the exercise we were just doing for the warm-up, we're going to do the cable bicep curl. But on this movement in particular, it's very easy to get a full stretch at the bottom of the movement. So when you're doing cable exercises in particular, you need to really be paying attention to how you're finishing the movement, because it's very easy to pump the weight up and down without having any control on the eccentric, which is the lengthening portion. You can see as I control my bicep up, it shortens. As I lower my bicep down, or hand I should say, my bicep lengthens. That's why it's called the lengthening or the eccentric portion. So it's during that portion of the movement you really need to focus on. And another thing worth noting is that although I said to be doing compound movements at the start of your workout, it's very difficult to do that for such a small muscle. So instead, I would think about movements that are bilateral instead of unilateral. So you're able to get a bit more blood flow to both muscles and some potential muscles surrounding the muscle you're trying to target. So it just reduces the risk of your injury and helps to get all of the good stuff to the muscle before the workout starts, Whereas if you put extreme amounts of isolation doing a unilateral exercise, you do run the risk of gaining an injury earlier on. So just something to bear in mind as well. Right, so I think that was a perfect example of the intensity you should be applying to your sets. It was challenging, definitely. I obviously managed to keep my form. If you think my form was shit or you think I have any improvements, let me know, of course. But I think I managed to keep my form across that whole set to a certain extent. And I got very, very close to muscular failure. I could have pushed myself a little bit further, but it's the first exercise, first set. There's no point going too crazy. I still want to be able to exert myself fully for the following exercises. So that's something maybe to apply towards the end of your session, or at least towards the last few sets or exercises of particular muscles. So let's go to the next exercise. It will be the next bicep exercise, and we'll talk about how we can apply the next training principle. Right, moving on to the next exercise. We're doing the dumbbell bicep curl. So what I'm doing for periodization, I suppose it kind of is, even like less than a microcycle, I suppose, is I'm only doing 2 sets per exercise, and I'm doing 2, maybe 3 exercises per muscle. And then I'm doing that twice in a week. So I will essentially be doing 12-ish working sets a week per muscle group, which is completely fine. I bet you've been like me, where you've been like typing up on the internet, oh, what are the optimal sets per week per muscle group? There isn't one, basically. So you're gonna struggle to find any information on it. So instead, I would just go based on how your recovery is responding to your training. If you're managing to do 10 working sets per session, you're doing that twice a week, that's 20 working sets, but you're not recovering at all between sessions, drop it to 8 working sets, because then that's 16 across the week. Still not recovering, okay, drop it to 6 working sets. All right, now I'm on 12, I'm recovering well, and I'm seeing some growth. That's probably a good place to keep the volume for the time being. So let's do the next bicep exercise. So if you've done this exercise before, or if you haven't done it before, but you've seen it before, you'll know that it's very, very difficult to get a proper deep stretch, because the movement finishes with your arm down by your side and the weight is pulling straight down. Whereas if the weight was pulling that way or diagonally down and back, you'd still be getting a pull and tension on your bicep. Not to say you aren't, but it's just not as good of one. So that's something to consider when choosing your exercises, is that do you know how to emphasize the stretch? So when using dumbbells, in particular for this exercise, and it's something you can consider for all exercises that don't necessarily have a good resistance curve, and tension will automatically come off of the muscle you're trying to target, you need to make sure you're not relaxing your arm when you're at the bottom of the movement. So when you're coming to the bottom of the bicep curl, you should not be just resting your arms. You should be controlling. Still, I'm forcing my arms to stay slightly bent and come back up. Same again. Okay, so you don't want to drop them. Even if you're like controlling them down, that's fine. Don't then relax here, because then you've lost tension. So work on controlling the movement downwards, but keeping tension on the bicep by not fully relaxing your arm. That's a great cue to think about when you're doing dumbbell exercises or any other exercise like this. So you see on that set, when I got to the bottom of the movement, I kept tension on my bicep by not just relaxing my arm. I controlled it down, and I was still trying to think about flexing my bicep. just an important thing to consider. So let's do the next one. Right, so we've talked about the stretch. Everyone knows how to get a stretch on different types of movements now. Obviously, we'll revisit it when we go on to triceps as well, but let's move on to how to get a better mind to muscle connection. So a great exercise I love to use to help with my mind to muscle connection is the easy bar bicep curl, which is the next exercise. Right, so you can see that weight was quite difficult. But there's a very valid reason for choosing a heavier weight than you might normally do, particularly for the first set. While yes, it might take some of the tension off of the muscle you're trying to target, in this case the biceps, because I might have to have a bit shittier form in order to actually move the weight. It really gets the blood flowing, which massively helps me to improve my mind to muscle connection. So after I've done the first set, I'm going to drop it by 5 kilos each side and then do really slow, controlled curls, allowing a deep stretch at the bottom. Again, not relaxing my arms, just controlling it down and keeping the tension on my bicep, and then explosive upwards. That's the only way I can suggest to do a really effective mind to muscle connection set. So give that a try and see what you think. So let's do the next set. Right, so you can see in that set it was a lot more controlled, especially during the eccentric phase. But I was really thinking about my bicep is the thing that's making this bar move. That helped me to actually focus on my bicep contracting and lengthening, and overall just made the set feel 10 times better. And I know it's going to provide me with a lot more growth in the long run. Right, so something we've not quite covered yet, but is one of the most important principles for actually gaining muscle is progressive overload. And it's a very easy way to do this. Let's give you an example. So this week, I'm going to do 41 kilograms on the tricep pushdown. Right, I hit a good amount of reps, probably a bit too easy. So next week, I'm gonna either add 1 rep or drop the pin by 45 kilograms. So let's do that. Right, so I can immediately feel that's way too heavy. That's probably because the stacks are way too different in weight. So what do you do now? This is where you use the mini pin or the gym pin. Mini pin's about 300 grams, gym pin's about 800 grams. So together it's just over a kilo, no problem. Chuck this in, that's now 41.8 kilograms. Chuck this in, that's now, hang on, let me figure it out, 42.1 kilograms. So you've only added 1.1 kilos. You might be thinking that's probably not enough. Fine, fair enough, 1.1 kilograms is probably not enough. So here's the last solution. Take out the mini pin, take out the gym pin, whack a 2.5 on the gym pin. Voila, we have now added 2.5 via the plate and 0.8 via the gym pin. So in total, we've added an extra 3.3 kilograms, which makes it 44.3. Because 45 was just a little bit too hard, that's probably perfect now. So let's see how it goes. So you can use this method with either the gym pin, mini pin, or gym pin and a plate to progressively overload literally however you want. You can increment by 0.3 kilos, 0.8 kilos, 1.55 kilos by using a mini pin and a 1.25 plate. It's endless how many possibilities you have to progressively overload how you want to. So if you're thinking about grabbing a gym pin, click the link in the description and use code LOCKY at checkout. It helps me out and you get 10% off. Right, so the final thing we have not discussed yet is a controlled tempo. So this one is quite an easy principle to apply because there's quite a wide bracket for where you will be in the optimal range. So the optimal range is 2 to 8 seconds, as stated by a study by Jeff Nippard and a bunch of other great research scientists. So I'll just give you a quick demonstration of what them reps can look like. And and what is probably a little bit too fast or too slow. So this is a rep that's a bit too fast. This is a rep that's a bit too slow. And this is a rep that's around about perfect. So there's plenty of studies to show that using a 1 to 2 second explosive concentric and a 2 to 6 second controlled eccentric with a stretch emphasis is most optimal for hypertrophy. So here's the big takeaway. Utilizing all of these principles, like constant progressive overload, emphasizing a stretch using full range of motion, doing 2 working sets per muscle group, focusing on a mind to muscle connection, and only training a muscle twice per week, no more and no less, you can transform a standard workout into an absolutely hypertrophic powerhouse. So let's recap what we've covered in this video and what you should fully understand by now and how to apply it. So stretch-focused exercises like a cable curl and tricep extensions maximize muscle activation. Controlled tempo, especially during the eccentric phase, increases time under tension for growth, and progressive overload ensures you're constantly challenging your muscles for long-term progress. This arm and shoulder workout is not just efficient, it's scientifically optimized for hypertrophy. And like I said, if you apply the principles we did in this workout to all of your other sessions, there's no doubt you can see significant gains whilst you're a busy student, optimizing both your academics and your training. So let me know, what are your go-to training principles, or if you have different principles for different muscles you train? Let me know in the comments, I'd love to hear them. As always, I appreciate you guys a lot for watching. Smash the thumbs up button if you enjoyed this video, and if you're new around here, hit the subscribe button and turn on the bell icon to get notified every time I post. That's all from me, and once again, I'll catch you in the next video. Peace.